All right, so we're just working on the bell ringer now. Here describe the bad tendency doctrine. Describe the significance of Gitlow versus New York, 1925. Need a few more minutes to finish up here. I haven't seen Holden in a long time.
I know.
Oh, man. It's been a long time. Still on vacation, right, Lydia? You don't know? Deer Slayer. Is that what he was there for a while? Watch any college football over the weekend, Joey?
Yeah.
Hopefully you didn't watch that Miami game. They got walloped. They did not look good at all. Yeah, they won. They won. All right, so describe what the bad tendency doctrine is. What is that? Z, go ahead.
In U.S. law, the bad tendency principle is a test which prevents restriction of freedom of speech by the government if it is believed that a form of speech has been full tendency to might or cause illegal activity.
Yeah, good job, right? So if it might incite harm, if if the speech or let's say symbolic speech might cause issues that might cause an uproar or the taking down of the government, then there could be limitations on the First Amendment. Good job. And we don't really see this coming about until really World War I and how the country was going to war. And again, like immigrant populations in the United States, what side do we join? Okay, and especially in the United States and PA, with German heritage and culture, this was something that the United States government needed to try to monitor in case there was ever an uprising, if ever was a chance that this group might take down the government from inside. Okay, and with the government, they had to come up with some ways to try to prevent this seditious speech, this speech that might be leading to assemblies to riot or violently protest against the government. So we saw the Sedition Act, right? We talked about that in 1917 when the United States was entering the war. Make sure that we can try to prevent any type of violent protests or uprisings or assemblies that might take down the government. And that continued on throughout the Red Scare. Okay, right at the end of World War I, with the Red Scare, with this fear of communism and socialism taking over in the United States, this was almost like a witch hunt in a way. Okay, this was almost to a point where it got a little exaggerated, got out of hand, which we'll talk a little bit more about tomorrow and today a little bit. But in case of government being overthrown, the rebellions that could happen, the government thought it was in their best interest to try to monitor and limit freedom of speech in certain cases. And we talked about, what was it, Schenck versus the United States? What was that? What was Schenck versus the United States? What was Schenck versus the United States? That was in 1919, I believe, 1920, that court case that happened. What was going on with that court case? This is a review from last week. Do you remember? Schenck versus U.S. No? Want to help me out here? Anybody, come on, come on. I know we don't want to talk. It's a Monday. Got back from quarantine. We're like quarantine. I get it. Go ahead, Sarah.
Carl Schenck was a member of the Socialist Party, and he sent letters to 15,000 drafted men for military service.
Yeah, good job, good job. So with the Selective Service Act, he thought that this was against the will of the people. Okay, it's against their rights, pushing men to join the war and participate in it when they have a choice to maybe not be involved if it goes against their morals, their culture, their religious beliefs, whatever it might be. He was trying to persuade to Americans that, hey, the government can't force you to partake in this war, that this Selective Service Act is unconstitutional. And he was sending out letters, they call it leaflets, like letters in people's mail, okay, in a mailbox to try to persuade people, hey, resist. The government can't force you to do this. But during wartime, okay, it was the government's best interest to try to make sure that this wasn't happening and that this couldn't be done. If so, who knows? We might not have had a strong military to fight in World War One. And in a way, this was against the United States government during this wartime, and could really take effect of how the United States could have been involved in the war. So with that, and there's a little bit of socialism tied into that. Okay, this person that was tied to different socialist groups, and with the Red Scare happening, okay, this was really a concern for the government. So he was sentenced to prison, okay, and he was viewed that he was a threat to the United States government during that time. All right, good job. All right, and then we talked about pure speech, symbolic speech, right? And what is symbolic speech? What is that? What is symbolic speech? So pure speech we know as maybe people going out and presenting themselves, talking about certain issues, in a crowd. It might be in an auditorium. It might just be in a park, whatever it might be. Today, it might just be YouTuber, right? Going on YouTube, talking it out, going on Instagram, TikTok, who knows, to express their issues, Twitter. But what about symbolic speech? What does that mean? What's symbolic speech? Just reviewing real quick from last week. What's symbolic speech? Alex, you remember? Symbolic speech. What do we think? What do we think? Z, do you remember?
I want to say it's where you basically get your point across on what you want to say by using symbols.
Yeah, good job. So there could be multiple ways of doing this, but the way you wear something, right? It might be an armband, okay, like we talked about with the court case Tinker versus Des Moines during the Vietnam War. So there's these children going into school wearing these armbands to try to promote their interest against the United States involvement in the Vietnam War. And symbolic speech can be anything, right? It could be symbols. It could be the way they dress themselves. It's just really not, it's not expressed, but it's symbolically stating what you're all about, what your interests are, what your beliefs are. And with Tinker vs. Des Moines, make sure you remember that one. It's probably going to be on a test or a quiz, that this symbolic speech was expressed against the Vietnam War by wearing armbands. And the Supreme Court actually sided with the school students, saying your constitutional rights and freedoms aren't taken away from you, even though you're in school and you're not an adult, right? That they're still protected, even if you're a student, even if you're not an adult. And just because you walk into the school, they might have policies with dress code, your rights are still held, okay? And I think that's an interesting court case because, again, it was proven in the favor of the children, which we'll talk a little bit more about some cases in schools where they sided with the school. And many people have some reactions towards that. All right, so last one real quick. Gitlow versus New York. What was the main argument here? What was going on here with Gitlow versus New York? What was this all about? Gitlow versus New York. What do we got? Lydia, what do you have for Gitlow versus New York?
The U.S. Constitution, First Amendment protection of the speech, which the states and the federal court, so Congress can't abolish the freedom of speech and stuff like that.
Okay, all right, good job. So what was Gitlow doing though? What was happening? Do you remember? From the activity that you went over, what you did Friday? What was going on here? What was he doing that caused this maybe tension, issues? Gitlow. Sarah, go ahead.
Wasn't he promoting his ideas?
Yeah.
School teacher was he?
I think he was an author, so yeah, I think he was a journalist as well. Yeah, so he was again, time of the Red Scare, 1920s. What was going on then too? Progressive era. Okay, the Gilded Age was still in effect around that time. So there's many industries, factories, businesses that were booming. Okay, industrial giants. Okay, we talked about many of those in American history, and many people didn't get the right pay. They didn't have any safety in the workplace, right? They didn't have any retirement, health insurance, you name it. Okay, so during the time era, he's trying to promote. Listen, we need to, as workers, as people that make the goods, the finalized products, we should see more compensation. We should see more health care, insurance, and benefits. Okay, we should have some sort of better pay. Okay, rather than just scraping the bottom of the barrel, right? We're just barely making it through life. Okay, affording everyday lifestyle and obviously heat, cooling, whatever amount, housing. All right, and he was just trying to promote. Listen, we need to try to fight for the workers, the middlemen. Okay, if not, this is going to cause some issues, and this could maybe even lead to a revolution, like what was happening in Russia in 1917. So he was viewing a lot of these aspects in Russia at that time, and all throughout the world, really, and especially in the United States with these big businesses and how these people were mistreated. And he was just writing in his book and writing in books and newspapers and trying to express his beliefs about what might happen if these people didn't get the right compensation. And he was viewed as a person that was trying to inspire socialism, communism, okay, a government takeover. Okay, he literally stated in his book that this could happen. All right, and the court sided against him again because of the Red Scare, because they thought that this was against government, right? That he was trying to take the government down with his writings and trying to inspire people to fight up against the government. And I thought that was pretty interesting. It's unique. And it went against the 1902 New York Criminal Anarchy Act. Ooh, good stuff. All right, so that being said, let's go to the worksheet from Friday. Number one, how did the court defend the application of the First Amendment to the states? What do we have for number one? I'll put these grades in here at the end of class. So how did the court defend the application of the First Amendment to the states? What do we have for number one? Lydia, go ahead.
I said the court defended the application of the First Amendment to the states by using the 14th Amendment, and the states were allowed to determine at their free will what was and what wasn't like a bad idea, and they were not required to justify their reasoning to anyone.
Yeah, good job. So the due process, right? 14th Amendment. And it's explaining that, all right, although we don't have to show examples, unique examples of it, we can state that if this was trying to incite any type of danger, if this was trying to form an assembly against the government, then we can step in and try to restrict some of these First Amendment rights. Good job. Good job. All right, two, how did the court require the state of New York to prove that Gitlow's publications constitute an actual danger? Explain. How so? What do you have for two? What do you have for two? Sarah, what do you have for two?
I did say no.
Yep, you're
I said
right.
no, the court determined that no proof of actual intent the false form was required since statements led to believe and belief implied intent.
Yeah, good job. So even though they didn't really need to have proof, they're just like, listen, it was trying to incite any type of danger. And that's where we see the bad tendency doctrine being established here with this court case. It's like, all right, well, this is on the tendency where this might be assuming assembly might be formed to try to topple or take down the government. So no, they didn't. That's interesting, right? Wow. So if they believe that it's inciting danger, or if there's any type of bad intentions with an assembly or writing or publication, then they don't really need to show much proof with it. Three, assume you're a political science teacher in New York State College. You require your students to read and discuss Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto. Do you think you could be found guilty of subversion on the basis of Gitlow's decision? Give reasons of your answer. So let's say it's during that time period, 1925. Okay, let's say that. Go ahead, Sarah.
I would say, like, teaching students about it wouldn't necessarily be like on the ground for prosecution because I wouldn't be necessarily like promoting the ideals, just like asking students to evaluate like the text and like think about it, not necessarily like
Yeah.
I think there's a reason to be prosecuted for forming.
Yeah, just analyzing, understanding what it's all about, what it's trying to establish, right? With some of the readings and the articles, you can just really analyze it and pick it apart, and just decide whether or not, obviously, just learning about it. It's not going to cause anybody to just take up arms and try to take down the government in some way. If you're not trying to promote those ideals or establish those principles to the students, then no. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, good job. So if you're just learning about it, yeah, that's fine. But if you're trying to maybe talk about it or promote that type of government and that type of action to the students, then yeah, maybe you would. But in 1925, I don't know. If I was a teacher, and talking about the Communist Manifesto, I'd try to stay clear from that, right? Because we all know some of these court cases that were happening right around this time at the end of World War I, and heck, this even occurred all the way in the 1950s. Right? With McCarthyism, there's many instances where this communist socialist idea was still something that is targeted, right? And then might be, you might be inspiring against the United States government. So I don't know. I would have stayed clear of it during that time period, but that's great, Sarah. Good job. You're just talking about it and discussing it. I mean, as long as you're not promoting those beliefs, I think you'll be good. All right, 4. If you had participated in Get Low case as a justice of the Supreme Court, would you have agreed with the majority's position or with Justice Holmes' dissent? Give reasons for your answer. What do you have, Alex, for 4?
I said that I would have agreed with the majority's position that we be able to express themselves.
Okay. All right. Good job. So you're saying that you would have just stuck along with what the other judges were saying, and in some ways censorship needs to happen, right? Okay. And if this trying to establish some sort of violent uprising or taking down of the government, then yeah, this should be limited in a way. Okay, good. Lydia, what do you have for 4?
I said I agree with because such a radical movement was overthrown with the entire government without any reform effort wouldn't gain any traction with the American public.
All right. Yeah, good job. I like that. Joey, what do you have for 4?
I would agree with this, and since these ideas would not be followed by the majority of the population.
All right. Good work. Awesome. Five, some constitutional experts maintain that there should be no limitations at all on the right to freedom of speech and press. Do you agree or disagree with the position? Devin, what do you think?
I just remain limited because people sometimes might go out and totally just rework everything. I don't know how to explain it.
You might be saying false things about a company, business, person,
Yeah.
politician, whoever it might be. Okay, good. All right. Sarah, go ahead.
I said I would disagree with the position because, like, it's not that I don't think that people shouldn't have freedom of speech, but like, if there are people like literally threatening to kill people or like threatening to cause harm to someone or somebody's business or something like that,
Yeah.
like having a constitutional basis for persecuting them could prevent the crime from happening before it does. So
Good.
like, it's kind of like protecting life, liberty, and property in a way that's like, maybe you're revoking some rights to an extent, but you're also in the end, protecting.
A politician, right? That would be something that could be stopped and taken care of right before the action can even start. Okay. And there's many cases of that situation happening all throughout history. I know a man in Scranton or Wilkes-Barre said that he was going to do that to Trump or something like that, and he was taken into custody for it. And it just goes to show it's like you just can't say or whatever, express yourself the way you would want about a certain situation, because in many ways it might cause danger and it might cause like you said, how do you have protection? How do you try to make sure that the government is safe from these types of actions and assemblies? Good job. All right, what else? What else we got? Joey, what do you think for 5?
I think the only time there should be limits is when it threatens people.
Good job. Good job. I think we're all on the same page with that. There should be some sort of limitations on freedom of speech, assembly, you name it, because it's let's face it, if it's trying to cause any type of danger or violent uprising or any type of unpeaceful action, then yeah, there should be some sort of limitations to it. All right. Good job. Good job. Is there any questions on that? Gitlow versus New York. All right. Good. All right, real quick, let me review over a few things here, and then we'll be all caught up where I want to be. So we talked about pure speech. We talked about symbolic speech and how these types of speeches in some ways can be infringed on, right? And in some ways it can be protected and stood up and could be limited to many people and assemblies as well if it's trying to cause harm or danger to the people of, citizens or the government, okay? We talked about symbolic speech. Okay, we discussed some of that with, different instances with burning draft cards, flag burning, black armbands, like we talked about, different types of marches and expressions in different ways of, maybe civil unrest. Okay, so with Tinker versus Des Moines, we talked about that with symbolic speech. Make sure you remember that during the Vietnam War. Okay, still today, Mary Beth Tinker goes around and gives a history lesson in a way about her case and how.
You can't even say hijack in an airport.
Really?
Right. Like you can't greet me in an airport and say hijack.
Oh wow!
People will think you're gonna steal.
I didn't know that one. That's good. That's good. What's the one for Subway? Do you know? No, I don't know. I thought there would be something funny with it. All right, yeah. So those are some examples. Obviously, if it's trying to present any type of danger, okay, if it's creating of any type of bad tendencies, right? There's limitations of freedom of speech. And I'll play that Meet the Parents clip again. I think that's really funny. All right, so again, I just wanted to review with you because I know I didn't get the amount of views I needed for those videos, and make sure we're all on the same page before we have a quiz or a test. All right, so there you go. There you have it.